guys, it's Maddie, and today I will be doing my March wrap-up. So March was a great reading month. I read 11 books, and it's not that impressive because I read a lot of manga, but still, that's a good number. I read 3,485 pages. One was released in 2009, one was released in 2010, there was one released in 2011, two released in 2012, one released in 2013, three released in 2015, one released in 2016, and one released in 2017. So the years were very diverse for this one, but no 2018 releases for this month. I read 6 contemporary books, 3 paranormal romances, 1 contemporary romance, and 1 fantasy. I read 5 manga and 1 graphic novel. Most of the books were from the library. I had 5 books that were checked out from the library that I read this month. I read 3 ebooks this month, and normally I never read ebooks, but I've been getting into them more, so that's good, I guess, to get a different format of reading. I read 1 book that I owned, and I also listened to 1 audiobook. I read 1 book that was by a male author, and the rest were by females. I read 9 books that were part of a series. So the majority of the books I read this month were part of a series, and I read 2 standalones. 3 of the books I read this month were rereads. I read 9 young adult books and 2 new adult books. All of my ratings were either 4 or 5 stars. I feel like I've been giving out so many 4 and 5 stars that I feel like I'm not a genuine book reader if I don't give a book 3 stars or less, but I'm sorry. I just have been loving a lot of books lately, and I honestly don't feel like there's anything wrong with that. Because my way of thinking it is you want to read books that you know you're going to like, and that's just been happening to me, so that's a good thing. I did not finish 4 books this month. All of them I plan to continue reading, maybe. I have 2 here that I definitely am going to continue reading. I just didn't get to finish them. But then I have 2 that I'm like, I might continue reading. I'm not quite sure yet. I feel like if I'm not sure if I want to continue reading them, then I should just officially DNF them, but I'm still thinking about it. I participated in 1 readathon that was Zoe's 24-hour readathon. I read 3 books for that. And out of the 9 books on my original TBR for March, I read 4 of them. So now that the stats are out of the way, let's just get into the books that I read this month. So first, we'll discuss the books that I ended up not finishing. Going with the ones that I might continue reading, again, not sure yet. The first one is Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. Albertalli, that's a hard last name to say. I picked this book up this month, even though it wasn't on my original TBR, because the movie for it was coming out in March, so I wanted to read it before I saw the movie. So the story is that I ended up seeing the movie before I picked up the book. I actually got about 50 pages into the book, and then I had this desire to go to the movies because I really wanted to get out of the house. So I'm just like, okay, I'll go see Love, Simon, even though I haven't read the book yet. And my rule is that I need to read the book before I see the movie. So I saw the movie anyway. And I actually didn't end up finishing the movie because I had to go pick up my brother from school. And I couldn't finish the movie on time, so I actually didn't get to see the ending. And I am hesitant to pick up the book now because I've already seen the movie. And the thing with me is, if I see the movie before I read the book, I will be less inclined to pick up the book because I feel like I've already taken in the story. So I never feel the need to pick up the book. That is why I always read the book before I see the movie, because now I feel no desire to pick up the book. So I'm still not sure if I'm going to yet. I liked the movie. It was really good, even though I didn't get to finish it, so I don't know yet. I just don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that, but I did enjoy the movie, so I might pick up the book and finish it. Next, I have An Enchantment of Ravens, who I forget who the author is. This is a book that deals with fairies. It reminds me a lot of A Court of Thorns and Roses. And it's not exactly like it, but there's very similar themes to A Court of Thorns and Roses in it. And because it's about fairies, and I love fairies so much, I really wanted to pick this up but I just didn't feel really invested in the story. Like, I thought it was okay, but it got to a point where I just didn't feel like reading it anymore. I just don't know if I wasn't in the mood for it. So I might pick this one back up. I don't know, not anytime soon. Maybe in the future I'll restart it, see how I feel then, but as of right now I just don't feel like picking it back up because it just didn't draw me in enough to the story. And the next two books that I definitely am going to continue is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I'm currently listening to the audiobook to this, and I didn't get to finish it before March wrapped up, so I'm going to continue listening to it in April, and I have approximately 2 more hours left in this audiobook, so I should finish it very soon. And the last book that I did get to finish in March, I actually just started this book, is Oblivion by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is a companion book to the Lux series, and it is the first book in the series told from another character's point of view, which is Damon. And I know I don't need to read this book in order to understand the series, but I just love the series so much that I don't mind reading a book in another character's point of view because I actually really love Damon so much. I think he's so cool, and it's definitely been quite an experience reading from his point of view, so I can't wait to keep on reading this book. I love the series so much that I just want to finish the series soon, but I want to read this book first. And next, I'll go into the books that I reread this month. So the first one is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I ended up completing this book this month. I had been listening to it on audiobook, and I am going through the books in this series in preparation for A Court of Frost and Starlight that comes out next month in May, so I enjoyed my reread of this. I will say that I don't love this book as much as the first time I read it because a certain character has changed in the newer books, and rereading this book is very hard because now I have different feelings for this character. It just kind of makes reading this book really painful. But I still enjoyed the first book. I'm just so in love with this series that I could reread them over and over again, and I would never get tired of it. And then I reread Ouran High School Host Club Volumes 13 and 14, and I'm almost done with my reread of this manga series, and I'm so excited because I really want to do a review on it because I want more people to know about this series. It is so good. I gave Volume 13 5 stars and Volume 14 4 stars. Or I can't remember if I gave Volume 13 4 stars and the other one 5 stars. I can't remember, but I gave one of them 4 stars. And now going into the rest of the books that I read this month. So I will be showing these books in order from my least favorite book of the month to my most favorite book. Starting with my least favorite, which is still a 4-star, is A Silent Voice. This is the first volume to a manga series. I picked this book up during the Zoe's 24-hour readathon, and I really like this. This is about a boy who meets this girl who is deaf. She's new to his school, and he begins to really bully her, to the point where it's kind of like she has to leave the school because he is bullying her so severely. And a couple years go by, and he reflects on how he treated this girl, and he regrets it, so he goes to find her and tries to make it right again. This manga was so hard to read because the bullying in it was so severe that it made me kind of uncomfortable reading it. And even though I still liked it, I just couldn't get past how hard-hitting it was, and that brought my rating down, and I feel like that's not very fair to the book because I'm basing it off of the fact that it kind of made me uncomfortable, but I just couldn't get past how much the bullying bothered me. And I know the point of this book is that it is about bullying, and I knew what I was getting going into it, but still, it just didn't sit right with me. But even with that said, I still want to read this manga series because the whole point of this series is that it's about this guy who once bullied this girl, but he regrets it and tries to make it right again. So this first volume only focused on the really hard bullying part, but I believe the rest of the books go into how he tries to fix it. So I have faith that this series is going to be good, and I still want to continue reading it, even though it made me really uncomfortable. And next I read volume 2 of Twilight, the graphic novel by Stephanie Meyer, and I believe the artist is Young Kim, and I like this. It's a solid 4-star read. Twilight, the first book overall, is a 4-star book for me, so I just based the graphic novels off of that same rating. One thing I've said before is I really love the artwork to this graphic novel. I think the artist is amazing. The artwork really reminds me of a manga style artwork, and I believe that's what it's influenced from. So that's probably why I like it so much. And yeah, I enjoyed it. And I think I will continue on with this graphic novel series just because I am a fan of Twilight. So next I read a novella, and that is Shadows by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is another book that's part of the Lux series. This book takes place before the events that happen in the first book. This book is about Damon's brother Dawson and what happened to him, which I won't go into because spoilers. So this book is completely different from what the first book is. It is in a different character's kind of perspective, but it still takes place in the same world, of course. And I did like this. This character had been talked about in the first and second book from what I've read so far, and I was really interested in his story because something happened to him that was just so crazy that I did feel like I did want to know like what happened to him, what were the details, like I just wanted to know. So I'm really glad that this novella exists, so we get to find out what happened to him and what went wrong with him. And I just really enjoyed learning all about his character. I think he was a really cool character, not as cool as Damon, of course, but I still really liked reading about him. So overall, enjoy this novella. I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. So at some point this month, I had gotten this huge desire to read a new adult book. It was so random, but I was like, I just want to read a new adult book. So I picked one out, just a book that I've been hearing about for years, and I'm like, that's a new adult book. Let's check it out. That was The Edge of Never by, I believe this is by J.A. Redmitsky. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. And I was inclined to read this because I had been having it on my TBR for like 3 years, so I'm like, let's take this chance and read it. So I did, and I really liked it. This is a book about a girl. She's 20 years old, and so much crap is happening in her life to where she just snaps and can't take it anymore. So she suddenly decides to travel, to get out of town, go to a different state for a little while, which is insane. And on the bus ride to a different state, I believe she was going to Colorado. I think it was Colorado, Kansas. I think she was going to Kansas. She meets a guy on there, and they kind of start to have kind of a rocky kind of relationship. They don't really get along. There's a lot of like tense moments between them, but she ends up getting to know him more, and a love story ensues from there. And it was a very easy read. It does have this dark element to it that I really liked, but overall it was really easy to read. It's one of those books that I felt like really got me out of my continuing reading slump because I had been in one for a while. And I feel like if you pick up any new adult book, at least for me, that's going to get me out of my reading slump because they're just so easy to read, and I really appreciate that. But I did like this book, even though there were some problems I had with it. One thing that really bothered me, and this was one quote that was in the book, just one quote that made me feel so uncomfortable. Without giving away too much, a character says something that really put me off. This character basically says, if I were to fuck you, I'd have to own you. I got so uncomfortable with that. And what made it worse is that when he said it, the girl actually got aroused by it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? How is that sexy at all? I would be so turned off if someone said that to me because no one should ever own anyone. And I just really wish that quote wasn't there because I had really liked this character, but when he said that, it made me like him a little less, and I just really didn't like that. And the fact that the girl was okay with him saying that, I'm like, really? How low are your standards to where it's okay for a guy to say that he owns you when that is so wrong? I like to think that he only said that because it was the heat of the moment, that he didn't really mean it, but even so, it just still did not sit right with me. And another little thing that kind of set me off is that the girl kind of slut shames a lot. Like, she judges people really easily and just says a lot of horrible things about them in her narrative, and I didn't like that. Made her come across as kind of bitchy, and I didn't really like that. Other than that, though, I still enjoyed this book. Even though there were some little problems I did have with it, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And this book is the first in a trilogy. The second book is out, and I definitely want to read it. Next, I read Onyx, which is the second book in the Lux series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Really enjoyed the sequel, and the thing that really killed me with this one is it left off on a huge cliffhanger that I just need to start the third book, but I'm reading the companion books first before I move on, which is, I'm just torturing myself by doing that. But this one was really good. The only little problems I had with it is that I felt like Damon got a lot more controlling in this book, where he was telling Katie that she couldn't do this or she couldn't do that because she needed to be protected, and that really bothered me. So I didn't like that. And another thing is Katie made so many stupid decisions in this book that I'm like, just think about what you're doing. You're gonna get yourself killed. And in that way, maybe Damon was right from saying no to her when she wanted to do certain things, but it didn't change the fact that he was too controlling and just kind of held her back from making her own decisions, and I didn't like that. But I still love this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Definitely not as good as the first book, but still enjoyed it, and I'm still really looking forward to finishing off the series. Next, I have 2 manga, and these are a part of my 5-star reads. So the first one is Haruiro Astronaut. That's such a hard title to say. This was a 1-volume manga that was included in the orange manga bind-up. And I hadn't even known this existed until I turned the page. Thought I had finished off Orange. And then I see this manga, which was like an extra story. And I'm like, oh, I'll check that out. This was really cute. Even though it was a standalone manga, so it was super short, I still gave it 5 stars because I felt like in the shortness that it still included everything I think a book or a manga should have. This manga had a bunch of cliches. It had all the love cliches. It had a love triangle. Every cliche you can think of when it comes to shoujo manga, especially, this manga had it, but it did all those cliches right, which I really liked and found really interesting. So this was enjoyable. If there were more volumes to it, I would definitely read it, but there isn't. But that's okay because this was a good standalone manga. And then I read Orange Volume 5 by Ichigo Takano. As far as I know, this is the last volume in this manga series. I saw on Goodreads that there is a 6th volume that isn't released. I'm not sure what's up with that, but I'm just gonna say right here, this is probably the last volume in the series, even though I don't know, but this volume felt very final. Like, it felt like an ending, so I'm thinking it is. And I really, really loved it. I had seen the anime prior to reading this series, so I knew what I was going to get into reading it. And it still was so hard-hitting, even though I knew how it was going to end. I still teared up. I just love this manga. I love the message it sends. I love the themes of it. I think it is a manga that if you have not read manga before, this would be a good one to read for your first one. I would highly recommend it. As for what it's about, it has to do with time traveling through letters. This girl receives a letter from herself 10 years in the future, and in this letter it tells her that something really bad is going to happen to her friend and she needs to fix it. I will say this manga does have trigger warnings for suicide, so if that doesn't bother you, go ahead and read it. If it does, just be cautious, but it's still so good. If you want a good emotional read, this is a great one. And now, finally, going into my favorite book of the month. I have been so excited to talk about this book because it has become one of my favorites. It was incredible. That is Far From the Tree by Robin Benway. This was my tri-chapter book pick for the month, and I made an excellent choice because I love this book so much. So this book has a really cool premise. It's about these 3 siblings who have never met. Their mother gave them up for adoption, and in this book they come in contact with each other. One of the girls, named Grace, had just had a baby. She's only 16, I believe, and she had a baby and gave her up for adoption. She starts to wonder about her biological mother and why she gave her up, and she also has this desire to meet her, but she also finds out from her adoptive parents that she has 2 siblings, and these siblings end up reuniting, and it's all about their story coming together at some point, trying to find out who their biological mother is. This book has such amazing family vibes in it, and that was the main reason why I like it. I tend to really love when books have family dynamics in them, and this one had such a great one because it's all about these siblings and how they come together after years of not even knowing each other existed and building a relationship with each other, which was my favorite part about this book, was seeing these 3 siblings come to love each other. It was just so heartwarming. Like, I get tears in my eyes just thinking about it. This book is from the point of view of these 3 siblings, and what I liked is seeing their each individual lives. All of their lives were great with their adoptive parents, but they also went through a lot of struggles, and I really liked seeing their individual struggles throughout each of their stories. But yeah, I can't talk about this book too much because I'm just going to go on and on and on because I loved it so much. But if you have not read it, definitely read it. It was amazing. The last 50 pages made me, not even joking, sob. I still cried even like an hour after finishing this book. That's how hard it hit me. And I rarely ever cry that hard for books. So this means that it was really good. Give it a 5 out of 5 stars. I think it should be more well known. It has won an award. I forget which award that was, but it deserves it because it is so amazing. I would highly recommend it. So those were all of the books that I read in March. Let me know in the comments what was your favorite book you read in March. I would love to know. And if you guys liked the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below for more bookish related videos. And